Greetings, Hempster. Thank you for tuning in to another Hemp episode of HempAware Radio. This is your hemptrepreneurial host, Tyler Hemp, here to empower your world as usual with the crucial knowledge, information, education, and updates on all things industrial hemp. And after 20 years of being in the hemp industry, it still excites me every single time I get the chance to connect with a fellow hemprepreneur and learn about what inspired them to get into this business and kind of share some of the miraculous gifts that hemp has to offer. And on today's show, I'm going to introduce you to a gentleman named Ben Sassman of Hemp for Life out of South Africa. And you're going to be very intrigued by what he has to share. He's looking for a strategic partnership with anyone that's interested in looking to source raw CBD hemp extract from South Africa. And it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm going to kind of share his background, what led him to getting into the hemp world, and also some of the major challenges and struggles that he's currently going through and that you might be dealing with if you're in South Africa or really any part of the world. Hemp for Life has been around since 2022. It's a startup and they're still working to get things off the ground, but he's in a really great position, has his hemp cultivation permit, as well as a client that's currently lined up in the US for an offtake agreement of 800 kilos of CBD a month. So he's got some things lined up, but maybe you're the next person to tie into what he's got going on. And I'm really excited to have him on the show. You know, each sector of the hemp industry has its own challenges, and many companies face a lot of the same obstacles to generating consistent, steady leads and clients into their business and ultimately generating sales. How do you convert those leads into a sale? And so this show is dedicated, HempAware Radio is our way to help as many hemp companies to thrive as possible. So let's get into the meat of this and learn how some things are going over in South Africa with hemp. Ben, thank you so much for joining me on HempAware Radio. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yes, thanks, Tyler. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so before we get into the hemp side of things, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and where you came from as far as your career, your expertise, and what ultimately led you to wanting to start a hemp company.
Okay, well, I should start by saying I'm not a farmer. I've never been a farmer, so this is all new to me. I'm 57 years old. I was born in Cape Town, South Africa, but I've lived in Johannesburg for the last 25 years. So I jumped ship 30 odd years ago to 25 years ago to come to Johannesburg. Yeah, my background, I worked for 2 foreign governments. Funny enough, I worked for the US Foreign Commercial Services in Cape Town, promoting bilateral trade and investment between South Africa and the US. I was in the agriculture sector and the textile sector, which was handed over to me. And then I moved over to the British High Commission. When I moved to Johannesburg, I promoted trade and investment between South Africa and the UK. But then I was in the ITC sector and the energy sector, specializing in renewable energy. So that is my work experience. I then started my own company in 2012. But nothing to do with agriculture or hemp. I did business development or trade relations between South Africa and some of the other African countries, Uganda, Tanzania, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and then the last 7 years I've been doing work in Botswana. So about 4 years ago, well, South Africa legalized cannabis and hemp in 2018, but about 4 or 5 years ago, I started helping companies in the sector to set up or apply for their permits to cultivate hemp and set up their farms and get funding for their businesses. So that is my professional background before I got into the hemp sector myself.
Wow. You have a lot of experience. That's amazing with the bilateral trade and working for the governments. You probably understand that sort of administrative process of running operations and business. So you were primed for starting a company yourself. But why hemp? Like, why did you choose to get into this world?
I looked at some of the people that I was assisting to get their businesses going, and doing the homework and the research, I realized how lucrative the hemp sector was. I'm not even going to get into the cannabis side of the business, but just hemp alone was a very lucrative business. And I also discovered that hemp was the number one crop that farmers were converting to, from traditional farming to hemp. And that said something for the industry. So I looked at what is the most profitable part of hemp cultivation. Now, biomass is not very feasible, but then I discovered your crude oils, your isolate production. That is where the real money was. And then I thought, wait, I think this is an opportunity for myself. I then applied for my own permit through our government. And once I received it, I decided to cultivate, but also produce CBD isolate as a product for the market, which is the most lucrative. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so you just kind of somehow heard about it somewhere, or started reading about all these farmers converting from traditional crops to hemp, and with your background in agriculture, as far as like trade, you felt like you could really build something that would offer benefit and value to your customers. And as I understand it, you're one of the permit holders to grow industrial hemp in South Africa.
Yes, South Africa has issued 371 hemp permits, which is, that only started in 2018, or should I say 2019, because we legalized it in September of 2018. So 2019 is when they started issuing out the permits, and yeah, I'm one of the 371.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll get into that a little bit more in a minute, but I want to take a step back and kind of dig a little deeper into maybe like your childhood. Like, is there a memory that feels might be like a sneak peek of what you do now, or was this just totally a random choice?
I wouldn't say it was a random choice. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've had my own business since 2012, but my business is more consulting, opening up markets for South African companies into Africa. I don't want to say it's not an entrepreneurial function that I had, but I think becoming a farmer, getting your hands dirty, producing a product is something I always wanted to do. In South Africa, I've mentioned this to you once before, it's very difficult to explain to foreigners, or especially Americans, about the race differences in South Africa. We all have white, we all have black in different parts of the world. But in South Africa, we don't just have white South Africans and black South Africans. We have what my race is called, which is colored, which I know is a very derogatory term in the US. But in South Africa, it's a proud culture. It's a proud heritage that we have. We go back generations. And, our people have always been marginalized, or been put on been marginalized. And it's very difficult for my people to become entrepreneurs and become successful entrepreneurs. And this is a ceiling that I wanted to break. And I wanted to do something not just for myself, but for my family and also for my community, where I could excel in something and break that stereotype or that mold, where I wanted to become a successful entrepreneur for myself and my family.
That's great. So you kind of had that bug inside of you your whole life to be entrepreneurial. Yeah. And you started a company over 20 years ago at this point, or I guess that would be 12 years ago, helping do business from South Africa to other countries within Africa. which is really fascinating. I look forward to learning more about that. I have good friends in Burundi and Uganda, and so there might be some opportunities there for us to chat about. But you mentioned kind of the societal challenges or just the perception of culture and race in South Africa. When it comes to some of the other biggest challenges other than that you face with a startup hemp company, what are some of the other things that you're finding that you have to work through and that are a bit of a challenge, and what are you doing to overcome those?
Yeah, because hemp is a new crop in South Africa. Look, understand, people have been cultivating hemp and cannabis illegally in South Africa for probably 100 years. But now that it has become a legal crop, your commercial banks, like you would have Chase and we have First National and Standard Bank. So our commercial banks are not open to funding any hemp farmers yet because they feel there's no track record and it's still too high risk for them to get involved. So the only funding we can approach, funding institutions we can approach, is our government funding institutions, because they legalized the cultivation of hemp and they are issuing the permits. Everyone is approaching them. But in South Africa, you still funding. It's not easy to say, but funding is still issued according to race in South Africa, and that makes it difficult for me. Just to give you a good example, if I want a loan from any bank for my business, hypothetically, if producing T-shirts, and I've got a client who wants 1,000 T-shirts per month, and I can make $10,000 a month profit. If I have an offtake agreement or an order for 1,000 T-shirts, and I go to any bank in South Africa, I should get that money because I can prove that I can pay back those installments every month. But I've got an offtake agreement, and I'm the only South African hemp permit holder that has an offtake agreement with a company outside South Africa. And like you said in the introduction, for 800 kilograms of isolate, CBD isolate per month, yet I cannot secure funding from any of the government funding institutions. And that is something I've been struggling with for the last 2 years. That's one of the battles I've been trying to overcome.
Wow. So what are you doing? I mean, it's obviously a challenge. Are you having to use your personal bank, or so basically your offtake agreement is for someone or a company that's willing to purchase 800 kilos a month? Are they willing to invest ahead of time so you can use their funds to create the operation, or is it kind of like you're stuck because now you can't get the funding in order to supply them from the banks?
It's actually a catch-22 situation, and believe me, I did ask the offtake agreement holder in the US if they would consider assisting me with the funding, with the capital, but I was not successful. And if I can get the funding and start producing, I've got a buyer lined up. And I'm not even looking for all the capital that I need, because I know the business will generate enough revenue over 18 months, which I will then pump back into the business for the rest of the capital that I need to expand the business. But yes, I have asked, I've even approached foreign governments to see if I can get the capital from outside South Africa, but it's very difficult.
So at this point, it's most likely going to have to be private equity, private investment.
Yes, I've used my own money. I do have my business still, a consulting business, and I've been using that money to get the startup to the point of where it is now. The cost of the permit, the water license, the legal fees for the lawyers for the property I want to purchase, the seeds that I brought in from California to test, if I'm buying the right seeds. all of those expenses, and I can't think of everything else, but there's a lot of expenses that I had to cover out of my own pocket, which I don't mind. It's, it's for my business.
Yeah.
I'm not being successful in getting the big capital that I need to launch the business.
I hear you. Well, maybe somebody listening to this that has investment capital that wants to put money into a hemp business will definitely. Where can people find you? What's your website? How can they get in touch with you?
Look, the website is hemp for life with the number 4.co.za, and my telephone number and my email address is on the website.
Perfect. Out there aren't Europeans. ZA.
ZA.
ZA. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So one thing I noticed on your website, and I'd love to kind of get a little bit more education on this, or what you mean by that you've sourced genetically engineered seeds. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. In South Africa, because the industry is very new, the hemp seeds that are available in South Africa are not certified. So it's like Forrest Gump said, you don't know what you're going to get. Because the first 2 harvests that I've done to test the seeds, it was actually the THC levels were higher than what my permit allowed. The second time it was seeds for fiber, your tall, thin hemp plants. So I then identified Ventura Seeds in California, and they have engineered a seed which gives you a maximum biomass, because that's what I'm after. I want to get a hemp plant that has maximum biomass so that I can put it through the extraction process. And I don't want to say it's designed for the African sun, but they sell their product into Mexico, into South America, all the warm places. And when I got samples, I also grew them in South Africa, and beautiful. I've got pictures of the leaves and the size of the plant. And a lot of South African farmers have said they've never seen a hemp plant that massive, that big. So that is why I went for an engineered plant.
And for clarification, you're not referring to like Monsanto GMO products. You're referring to a specific breeding process to increase the yield, increase the biomass. So it's organically engineered. It's not like genetically modified per se.
Oh yes, no, you're right. Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, it's just the plant is bigger and the leaves are bigger, so it gives you more biomass, and it still keeps the THC under 0.2%.
Exactly. Gotcha. So to kind of shift gears here and go into some of the marketing aspects of how you're getting leads into your business and converting this one customer into, or I guess a prospect who's willing to make a purchase from you, what does that process look like? How are you currently marketing your business?
I do not want to make it sound as easy as I just did, but it took me 9 months to secure one client in the US. We're not allowed to sell hemp products or any hemp byproducts in South Africa. As silly as it sounds, we are allowed to cultivate unlimited hectarage or acreage, but you cannot sell more than 600 grams to a buyer who does not have a permit, him or herself. So that makes it very difficult. If I sell it to another permit holder in South Africa, what are they going to do with it? So we have to find buyers outside South Africa, as ridiculous as it sounds. So I approached pharmaceutical companies because, look, I understood that CBD isolate is used for pain relief, inflammation relief, epilepsy, for medicinal reasons. And I knew that would be the biggest target market. So I approached companies in Australia, New Zealand, in China, the whole of Europe, the Americas, and Canada. I spoke to That's what I'm saying. It was a 9-month process. When I eventually got the client interested, all the other clients wanted samples from me because they wanted to test the isolate in their own lab environments because it had to be 99% pure. So the buyer that I got in the US, that was 9 months of negotiations. It was emails back and forth, virtual meetings like this, WhatsApps. It was just a long process. I've also been busy for, I think, 14 months now trying to secure a second client because I still have an additional 300 kilograms of isolate that I need to find a buyer for. So it's not as easy as it sounds. It's a long process, and I've tried all mediums, platforms, social media to find potential buyers.
Cold calling, cold email, cold direct message on social media. Yeah. How did you get a hold of this customer, and what would you say was the ticket to convert them into a prospect that's willing to pay and sign a contract?
Yeah. I actually did not contact them directly. I contacted a company in Canada that was buying from a supplier in the US, and they gave me the supplier's name. So they did an introductory email and they copied me in. So that's how I got introduced to them. Then I knew, because the order that they put in with me for 800 kilograms, they actually splitting up to 2 companies, 400 kilograms to 2 different companies. So I had to, the other thing I need to mention, because there are so many companies producing isolate and crude oil around the world, the prices are very competitive. So you're looking at a difference of $2 or $3, which makes suppliers use different distributors. So I had to knock my price down so that I could undercut the next guy. And by doing this, this client was interested in my product. So they also have one condition in their offtake agreement, which is they want to test the product before they start buying. But I'm confident that the product will be 99% pure.
Wonderful. Well, I really appreciate your presence and the fact that you're pursuing this. And I just wanted to kind of ask you maybe a couple more questions. Like if you were to give someone advice who's wanting to get into the hemp industry, start their own hemp-based business, what would you share with them? What should they know? What should they avoid? Where should they put their focus and energy to really get something going?
Yes, the biggest downfall I've seen with companies in South Africa is 2 things. The one, like I said, secure a buyer for your product upfront first. It took me 9 months. There are 370 companies in South Africa still trying to get buyers internationally. It's cutthroat and it's very difficult. And you need to do this via virtually or social media or any other platform. So that would be the first advice I would give, is to find a buyer for your product. The second thing, which is critical, is to find seeds that are certified and conducive to your climate and for the purpose it's a match for the product that you want to produce. Because there are a lot of cowboys out there that's selling a lot of dodgy products, and I don't want to insult anyone, but you need to find the right seed for your company. That's critical.
Most certainly. Yeah, I agree. Number one lesson, before you get into major production and start producing products, have those buyers lined up ahead of time. Know that you have market interest and that you're able to fulfill their needs, and they're able to afford whatever it is that you have to offer, or that you can offer it at a price point that people are willing to pay for. And number 2, make sure that the quality and consistency of the seeds that you get are certified and verified and going to be below that threshold, so you don't have to deal with plants going hot. Good advice. I appreciate that. And just as a final thought, I'd love asking my guests a more philosophical question. And that is, if you were, let's say, standing at a podium and you were speaking to every human being on the planet, what message would you want to leave with them about hemp or about anything in life?
Yeah, something I learned very early on in starting the hemp business that I want to pursue now is that hemp is the number one crop that traditional farmers are converting to. And that survey was done globally. When I talk about Morocco, Lithuania, the Ukraine, or countries in Africa, a lot of farmers have converted to hemp because it is one of the most profitable crops per acre or per hectare. And I've seen South African farmers that are also now talking about switching over. So hemp is used in a multitude of products, not just medicinal, but fabrics in the motor industry, in brick making, in concrete. We've built a building in Cape Town in South Africa from what's it called, brickcrete. I would say hempcrete, and it's a very durable product. It's a good product to get into, and I would suggest or recommend that to anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur in the agricultural sector.
Right on. Well, thank you so much. I love the connection. I appreciate what you're doing. It's really exciting for me to connect with entrepreneurs in the hemp world in Africa, in South Africa. And it's been a lifelong dream and mission of mine to do more business with Africa. And as a young entrepreneur, one of my best friends was born and raised in the Congo, and he was one of the biggest inspirations for me. And he's now passed. His name is Bigira Kiro. And so in his legacy, it would be an honor to help your business grow and other similar businesses. So really appreciate what you're doing, and thanks everyone for tuning into another hemp episode of HempAware Radio. As a final comment, if you need help growing your hemp business and you're looking for maybe an audit or someone to just take a look at what you're currently doing to generate leads and customers for your business, go to hempaware.com and just request our free website marketing audit, and we'll help you grow. We'll help you put some things into place that can get you out there, create the right messaging, and attract your ideal customers. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.